Have you ever asked yourself, I feel like I'm off track, but I don't know why or where or how? On today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about how the math will keep you on the path to success. Enjoy. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name's Max, I'm your host. Good to have you in the house. Good to have you here listening in the podcast. Good if you're on YouTube. Appreciate you sitting down and having a bit of a look-see. As I'm pointing out on the last episode, we are in the bios where you can find all the information to get a hold of me, whether it's a WhatsApp number, email, links to some of the courses that I've got online, the introductory courses to business management, things like that. So feel free, if you could go and check that out, leapbusinessadvisory.com is the place. Get across there. Also get across to our private group, Business for Builders VIP, or just Business for Builders on Facebook. We've got to start building that community, guys and gals, to make sure that, because there's safety in numbers, right? So let's be diligent. We want to build that high-performance, kick-ass business. And so what we need to do is understand that it doesn't just come to us automatically. The more I learn, the more I earn. Keep that in mind. Right, today, I was just going to talk about metrics, and then I thought, hang on a minute, that'll have everyone throwing up in their mouth because nobody wants to look at numbers. But it's really about, using the math to find the path. I was going to say path, and that would make me sound like a North American. But using the math to find the path, that's critical to, on the last episode, I talked about targets. It's like, what am I mapping to? And what I have a hard time with is guys and gals, business owners, building companies, general contractors, they'll say, oh, my target's that. And then their activity maps somewhere else. And normally it's at a lot lower revenue target. I said, you would tell me you want to do 3 million, but your activity and your actions is mapping to 500,000, right? Keep that in mind. So this is why the concept around, I'm not sure who it was, whether it was Zig Ziglar or someone said, what you don't measure, you can't manage. What you don't measure, you can't improve. Okay? And so we've got to have a way, and this is interesting because if you're a high volume builder, I mean, if you're doing everything yourself, the last thing you're going to do is sit down and fill out a spreadsheet. When I was running a franchise group, it was all about the numbers. It was just, and I would train 20-year-olds to track the data. And then I could then look at the data because it was all extrapolated out using a formula, and it would tell me where we're up to, what the conversion rate. We also had a portal that helped. Okay, everything went through the system, ended up telling me what conversion rates were based on lead to contract, and also from quote submitted to contract. So there's some data points there as well. If you've got salespeople working for you, you're going to want to know that because it's like, well, they can take a lead from here to here and they convert at 20 or 30%. Great. They can take a lead that goes into a quote, and that quote, the quote to job ratio is at 85%. Great. And so those kind of data points start telling you a story. So what you're doing is you're saying, are those metrics or is that math taking me up the path that I want, or is it showing me that I'm way off track? In a nutshell, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So if you are listening to this and you are an EBA coaching client, either past or present, you will know about the activity key metrics. So I'm not going to talk about all of that today, but you've got to understand that we monitor the behavior of the business because it does tell us a story. It tells me a story. Sometimes it can be, what I love about the activity key metrics is that I get my builders to put the data in. And the reason I do that, because I don't want to spoon feed them, okay, is that they start to see the development of the statistics. And then we talk about the performance of the business, and they start to get an appreciation of why it is that they follow the math, or why they use the math to confirm what path they're on. So, it's important that we don't just see it as another inconvenience. You know what? In today's marketplace, guys and girls, the amount of information and training like this that you can get your hands on is unbelievable. Like in my day in the mid 90s, some of you kids weren't even born then, but it's just it was just non-existent. It was just non-existent. And so today you can get information and education anywhere, anytime. And that's why I'll always say to you that having a good idea is okay. It's cute, but it's shit unless you execute. And what execution means is it's a change of position. There's inertia that's overcome to be able to take action and go and implement. Now, when you take action, do you get it right every time? No, you do not. And if you get discouraged easy, then you're not going to go the distance, because that failure is going to destroy your confidence. You're going to be disillusioned. You're going to go, you know what? This is not for me. And if it's not, that's okay. But don't call yourself a thoroughbred entrepreneur if the first little bit of resistance or pushback rattles your cage. And so, metrics, just to get started as an intro, metrics that we follow, obviously we have a sales goal, so it's a revenue target. An inquiry forecast build value, received for that month. We have the number of leads this month, and there's a reason all these data points are collected, because it extrapolates out and helps me with some of the back end information that we need. So numbers of leads this month, contract dollars signed this month, contract numbers to be signed in the next 90 days, numbers of projects signed this month. What's my fixed expense? What are my payroll and cost of goods sold team members? Because there's a bit of a cross there. What are the billables? What's my billables, claims, and invoices for this month? What's my local area marketing spend? And what's my digital marketing spend for this month? And then in between all of that, there's data points. There's almost like a result that comes out of those data points when they're entered. Because what I just read out is what my builders enter into the activity key metrics. And what it does is then spits out average contract values, contract numbers, dollars signed to date, number of leads year to date, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a massive amount of information that goes in there. Then we lean over the next page to what we call the cash flow forecast. And that really does interface with the activity key metrics, because I need to know what I need as far as a break even for my activity key metrics. And then I look at my cash flow forecast and I go, clients down the left-hand side, in the month of, what are we now? January. In the month of March, we're going to sign a $100,000 contract or whatever. And then you see it all it compiles or totals up in that month how much revenue created. And then you refer back to your activity key metrics as to whether or not you're going to hit your break even off the back of that. Because it'll tell you that to hit your break even, if you want to know what your break even point is, and this is if you're doing fixed price, if you're doing cost plus, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge unless you can nail down your consistent profit margin. So if you you divide your fixed expense by your profit margin, and that will give you your break even point. Okay. We're not going to do that today. We talked about that in the last couple of episodes, but you need to know what your fixed expense, your break even point is. And then you want to add to that an amount that you're going to protect that's going to give you your net profit of, say, 10% at the end of the year. Okay? Right. So let's get on with it. Number one, metrics as direction. So, whoops. Right. So what we need is metrics turn the uncertainty of not knowing. So I talk a lot about the sleep at night factor, right? So metrics turn uncertainty into direction, and they show you where to step next instead of guessing. And if I was to bring in some of my EBA clients right now, what happens is, if they've done accurate data entry, if the data going in is very hygienic, okay, it's good data, then the story that's being told to us now is very much, it gives us a really good landscape picture and understanding of what the business is doing. And so the good part about that is we can start to see trends. Okay, is the business trending up or is it trending down? Are we getting more leads this quarter, or do we get less leads this quarter than the last quarter, and compared to last year as well? Guys, and this is why, if you go, Max, this is bullshit, I can't do this. What that is it's limiting thinking. And the reason it is, and I don't mean to bust your balls over it, but you and I can't do it all. I would not be running a building company right now if I did not have a business partner who's a very good match doing what he's doing right now. Period. It's too much business. We can't, because I'm not interested in doing 1.5, folks. I want to do 5. See, so what I'm talking about is what I know at the top, I learned at the bottom. I need to encourage you to not despise these days where you're only doing 400, 500, 600,000 per year. What you're doing is you're sharpening your sword. You're sharpening your axe. And so as you grow and as the opportunity comes along, like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, not the other way around. You ever tried teaching something to somebody who doesn't want to learn from you? I've done that. Doesn't work. So don't despise those days where you just think you're not doing, I think it's impatience too. I'm impatient. It's like, of course I wanted it yesterday. We all do. But I think there's got to be some emotional quotient, some emotional control that says it is about my growth. I can systemize everything around me. I can get a wrapped vehicle. I can do this, that, and the other. But when it comes down to it, the speed of the leader determines speed of the pack. And I've seen businesses outrun business leaders, and it ends in destruction. So don't be in too much of a hurry. Do as much as you can do. As long as you are doing all you can do, that's going to be enough, right? So be encouraged, okay? Nobody says you've got to do it in the next 2 years. Like, who are you trying to prove shit to? Like, don't be one of these guys or gals that goes and spends money they haven't got to buy shit they don't need to impress people who don't care. Like, guys, let's be mature business owners. If you're in your mid-late 20s and you're listening to this old dog, mate, you've got the perfect opportunity to build a magnificent business because you've got time. But you want to rush out there and you want to get it all done so you can what? Flex? Such horseshit. This business is killer. It's killer good, but it will kill you too. If you're not careful financially, it will destroy your life. It's real talk, like there's a part of me, I like to have a very ordered process. It's what I love, okay? But there's, I can go off on a tangent because there's more money in my tax account right now than most of you guys will take home this year. It's important that you understand your obligations, your responsibilities. You've got to understand how is it the best way to build a business. See, our problem can sometimes be that we become the bottleneck. We don't know it because we sit there and go, well, there's nothing wrong with me. It's the market, it's the interest rates, it's this other subcontractor, it's these people. There's no more good people out in the world. It's the biggest load of horseshit. If your mindset says that there's nobody out there, guess what you're going to find? Nobody good. You've got to change your attitude because like attracts like. And it's important that we embrace change. You're not going to, whatever's got you, we are the sum total of all the decisions and all the actions and all the activities up to this point in our life that we have made. All of those decisions to become the people we are today. If you don't like the result, perhaps it's got to do with your decision-making process. Perhaps it's got to do with your activity level. Perhaps it's got to do with the amount of commitment that you make to learning. When I first came to this country, I can't even remember what the diplomas were, but then I got my work permit. I got my permanent residency here in Canada, and I pretty much closed that down because I thought I'm going to get after some business. But while I was waiting, I was educating myself. I'm always about reading and listening to podcasts, and I'm like, I'm not going there with this tangible, I must learn something today. I'm just going, if I don't listen to it, it's guaranteed that I won't learn something today. So we've got to change our mindset. It is all about mind. It's a mindset. It's the 6 inches between your ears that's going to make or break you. Far out. We better get on with this. Okay. Cash flow forecasting. This is an easy one, right? Now, many of you, cash flow forecasting, I guess you haven't done it because you've had no clear understanding of why you're going to do it. Now, I've already alluded to the fact that some of my EBA guys and gals, they will go and extrapolate out in 3 ways. There will be customers in that spreadsheet in the cash flow forecast that are going to be in black text and they're under contract and they're under construction. Mazel tov. Then there is going to be a client with cash flow forecasts that are in red, but they're 90%. They will probably go to contract. Time out. Dom? Oh, there's something come up on my screen. I don't know if it's terminal. Oh, it just went off.
Yeah, just a battery one. You're still good.
Good. Okay. And then there's the guys or the clients in blue that just come on to the cash flow forecast. They're right at the bottom level. So they're not brand new leads. You don't put every single lead in there, folks, right? I mean, you can, you're just not going to color code those. They're just going to be kind of down the list until you start throwing cash forecast amounts into each of the months. That's when you start color coding them. Okay. And that is not a bad habit to get into, just putting every lead in there and you just, well, if that didn't work out, you just knock them out. Okay. It's a good way to sort of get eyeballs because remember, here we are as business owners wanting to have a $5 million business with a 10% net at the end of the year. Okay. It's not a bad deal. Okay. Doing 5 million, you got a 10% net. Do the math, right? If you're going to build a business, that is if that's your target and that's your why, it will actually encourage you to deal with the hard times and the shit that comes down the pipe there that doesn't make us happy, to go through the growth, you know, where you're morphing from one level to the next level. And it's just like, you know, Alex Hormozy puts it an interesting way. He says there is pain in expansion, there's pain in stagnation, and there's pain in decline when the business is going backwards. So as long as, if you're doing any one of those three, until you hit altitude, where even in maintenance of a business is going to be painful to a certain extent. Okay, but until such point that you embrace not just change, but the pain of change, then and only then you're going to position yourself ready to take on business that's at a higher level. Okay, cash flow forecasting. If you don't forecast cash, cash will control your decisions instead of the other way around. Okay, so get used to or fall in love with cash flow. Matter of fact, I know builders in my EBA coaching group that enjoy the cash flow forecasting because it's a little bit gamified. It's like they love projecting the cash and then the business catches up and tries to actually deliver. And so every time we tick over a month, all of the cash in that column has got to be black. It's got to be under contract. If it's still red because the clients haven't made a decision and aren't under contract, pick that amount up and put it in the next month. Because you can't claim it's gamification of the cash flow. So when you're sitting down and going, I really hate talking to clients, or I'm a little bit shy when it comes to sales, if you've mapped out your cash flow forecast and you're tracking your activity, it compels you to go and do that which you maybe don't enjoy as much. Or you might be not liking putting data in, but you put data in because you love seeing the scoreboard as to whether or not you're winning, or in some cases, not winning. Okay, because that's the truth. Let's deal with the truth. If you know nobody likes a blind side, nobody likes a surprise. If you know you're going to have a bad month in 3 months, it's best to know now while you've got time to do something about it than getting to 90 days down the track and going, shit, I haven't got enough money to do my payroll. Okay, that's cash flow forecasting. Next one, project start finish dates. Okay, we need to understand because these help us understand. It gives us a strategic opinion as to where we're going to have hotspots in our year. And when we are bringing new jobs in and under contract, I don't want to have a start date. Let's say I've got a start date here, and this is what it'll look like on the spreadsheet. And then I'll put another job directly under it. Okay? And in some cases, we want to make sure that we only have a maximum of 3 jobs on at once. And we certainly don't want to start jobs at the same time. And we certainly don't want to finish jobs at the same time either. Why would that be? Because that's going to stress your delivery system. Everything inside of that is going to be stressed because you're trying to have one team of guys finish 2 jobs at once. You're going to have one team of guys, they're going to try and start 2 jobs at once. See, you're making life difficult for yourself. Why? Because you have a business by default, not a business by design. Worse still, you've got a business out of desperation, more so than design. Because you're like, well, we need to get the money in, so let's just freaking start them. And then you get 2 weeks into this and you've got pissed off clients. So yes, you've got cash flow, great, but now you've got a very irritable client, which you've now got to live with for God knows how long. And then potentially you're going to end up at the same result. So we want to stagger start. So again, that project start schedule is to help make your life easier, right? And so this is why we're saying, all right, we've got a target. Okay, this is where we're going as far as the direction's concerned. What is going to help us deliver efficiently and coherently and keep the peace, right? It's not this. This is broken, okay? So let's not do that. The dates create discipline. Without them, schedules drift and profit erodes quietly. Now, side note, now that I've sort of said that, the side note is, you know, I need you to have a think about it. I'm not going to say you should do this, right? Because I'm who am I? I'm just one guy, right? One builder. The profitable pricing system is something that I employ to enable me to protect my 10% net profit. So when I'm doing an estimate, of course we do materials, labor, delivery, right? We get that. That's pretty straightforward for all of us estimating guys. But beyond that, what I changed that up, instead of trying to get a markup and a gross profit, because business got tricky in the last 12 months, 2 years, and we had to start really fine-tuning our pricing model, I knew that I always had to have 10%. That's facts. What I then did using a profitable pricing system is I would put in as a line item what it would cost me to run the business, or I would understand what it would cost me to run my business per day. So it's $500 a day, let's say, right? So with that amount, now, could I put that on a small job? No, I couldn't. So I needed to have 2 jobs going at all times. See, the math will create the path. So it's like, right, I can't put $500 a day on one job. I'll never win a quote. What I can do is put $250 a day for the length of the project. So let's say it was 3 months, 20, 40, 60 working days, 60 times 250, bang. That's to run the company. That's to run all of my indirect costs. That's to run everything that's got to do with the business that's not a cost of goods sold. Okay, and then of course your cost of goods sold, carpenters, electricians and blah, 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 you know, lumber and timber and all the stuff that goes into a project, that should all be covered in the quote, in the estimate, in the budget, if you like. Okay, so all I've got to do is build it in accordance with my materials and labor, make sure that I don't overshoot the contract period because I've only allowed for, 60 days, let's say, working days, and I will, by default, end up with 10% on that project. Now, when you say to me, Max, how much do you mark up your materials and labor by to create that net profit goal? I will tell you right now, I mark it up by 12%. That gives me a 10.75% margin. Now, remember, I've covered my running costs and I've covered my materials and labor. I'm just a conduit for a lot of the cash that comes through my business. I just want to be left with 10%. Now, I've got to pay myself a reasonable wage. So be careful that you're not just paying yourself 30 grand a year and thinking your business has got a hot net profit, because I'll come in there and pop that balloon pretty quick smart. Okay. Right. We don't want to have the profit erode. Next thing, sales and pipeline metrics. Now, I think we already talked about this. As far as the first thing that we want to focus on is what's our revenue target? That's the first thing. So if I want to do 3 million, I'm going to need $15 million worth of inquiry. Right. I also need to know numbers of leads coming in, because that's going to help me extrapolate a marketing data. So my cost per lead, my customer acquisition cost, and my return on advertising spend. Those 3 data points, I need the numbers of leads because I need to know what that is. But numbers of leads doesn't give my business any security if I'm not monitoring what the forecast build value each month of those leads are. So if I get 10 leads in for new houses, they might be worth $500,000 a piece. Great, that's added up. If I get 10 leads in and they just want me to replace, light bulbs and fix gate hinges and shit like that, yeah, 10 leads is not going to cut it. Okay, so it's why it's important that I track both. Okay, sales numbers reveal tomorrow's workload long before it shows up on site, and so that's why we have that forecast amount. We go, right, what am I going to sign in 90 days from now? We need to know that because that helps our cash flow forecast to know whether the business is going broke and it's trending down, or whether or not we've got a very fat, next 12 months. And I've got clients that are forecasting 12 months right now. It's exciting. It's the best. Mate, talk about a sleep at night factor. You go from a business that's out of control, it's got no clarity and it's fully confused, it's chaotic and you put some of these measurement systems in place along with their discipline to put in hygienic data, and all of a sudden they start to feel like they are back in control. Why? Because they've got order. Say no more about that. Right, so we need to know what's coming down the pipe. Okay, next thing, and this is really important too. We're talking about job costing. What else have I got here? Job costing and margins, which we were kind of just chatting about. I've kind of jumped the gun, but I'll go over it again. Okay. If your pricing model sucks, you can't build it fast enough. It's just the way it is, right? If you're saying to me, well, I've got a 3% net profit, you might as well have none and you're going out the back door anyway. Like if you get below, if you're a part of my coaching group and you get below 8%, that to me that's like bare minimum. Because unless you're doing 10 million, you won't enjoy that 5 and 6% net profit. If you're doing 10 million, that economy of scale kicks in and you've definitely got an ability to create. That means you've leveraged off the back of systems and good people to do that 10 million, because it's like if you're running a $10 million, it's almost easier to run a $10 million business to create that level of profit as it is to run a $5 million business. What you need to run a $10 million business is $50 million worth of leads every year. But you've got to be able to, when you get those leads come in, then it comes back to lead management. And how's my sales process? Do I have an adequate size sales team? Is fruit dying on the vine? Are leads just not getting talked to? Like there's a whole bunch of shit that's broken at a high level that was always broken. But you just imploded. So guys, what you need to be doing is, I think I used to say this a lot. I haven't said it recently, but it's technique first, speed later. That's probably a martial arts thing. It's like get the technique right and then work on the speed. If I'm, we're learning a Blink-182 song at the moment, and I think it's called Damn It, and it's got a very unique intro riff. And I know that I've got to make sure that I don't have to think about doing that riff. It just comes to me. That's learn the technique and then get the speed and make it performance ready. And that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so job costing and margin. Margins don't disappear. They leak slowly when you stop measuring. Okay, this is why we've got to be very scientific in our pricing model, but also in our execution. If we're not focused on, I've had more than one new inquiry about EBA business coaching that I show them what I do. There's the line item. There's the profit that I'm protecting. Here is how I spell it out between labor and materials. Here's the budgeting. Here's the bid request for that scope of work at 30 odd thousand, where my budget amount was 38. If you ask me, what is the upside of going fixed price, is when you've allocated 38 grand and the bids come in at 30 and it's going to do exactly what you need it to do and you make 8,000, that's 30% on that line item. Now, is it high risk? Yeah, it is. But for me, as a 52-year-old, haven't been in the game since 1989. What's that, 35 years? I've just done residential. Literally, I can count on my left hand how many times I've been on a commercial site. Didn't enjoy it. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. Right, operational metrics. So, remember, we're trying to find the path to a high performance, high profit, better lifestyle for us type business. That's what we want. And so we've got to map these operational metrics. So because often what you'll do is you will hand off the sales component. I would do that last. Sales and estimating, the last two things I want my guys to give up. Okay. But before that, the operational metrics. So if you're outsourcing marketing, that's a big one. That's customer acquisition, cost per lead, return on advertising spend. But you'll need to track the front end data around what leads are coming in, numbers of leads, what's the forecast build value, or what's the value of the lead, is because that's going to then extrapolate across based on formulas to tell you what your CAC is, your CPL, and your ROAS, right? So these are the operational metrics. So what it's doing is, like accountants typically, they account for the year's activity. They all do it here in the next 3 months after the end of the financial year. The problem with that is if they come back to you and say, Mr. and Mrs. Builder, Mr. and Mrs. General Contractor, unfortunately, you've either got a big tax bill or you've lost 50 grand. You can't fix anything. Whereas if we start identifying the operational metrics and we've got eyes on it and the information going in or the data going in is very hygienic, then we will have a good understanding of the activity that's in the business. And is it good activity, or is it a high performance activity, or is it low performance? That's what's going to give us the understanding. That's why the math will map to the path. Keep wanting to say path. Okay. What gets measured gets managed. You've heard me say that. What gets ignored becomes expensive. There's one to think about. What you ignore becomes expensive. And so if you're busy, and I understand, and it's like, this is why if you're a one-man band, you've got to keep it probably under $1 million, because once you get over $1 million, you're in the swamp, and you'll actually lose more money than you're making once you go over there if you're doing everything by yourself. What you want to do in that journey up to $1 million is be thinking about your organizational plan or your org chart, right? And what that is that's basically, I've played a little bit of AFL footy in my time, and you'd always get the whiteboard, and it would be an oval shape because that's what we played on, cricket fields, right? And there's 18 men on the field at once. And it would show you, here's my forward line, here's my centre half forward line, here's my centres, here's my centre half backs, and here's my full backs, and here's my wings. That you would go, right, this person. So for me, not really, I was either a ruckman or a full forward. Not particularly athletic, but can catch a ball and can kick goals. Bit of a goal sneak maybe, right? So I had a specific role. I did play centre half forward for a little bit. I'm not a winger. I'm not a centre. I'm not a good defender. My brain doesn't work as a defender. I'm all about, kicking goals and, being front line. And so you've got to have your game plan of who you're going to have in your business so that it can, in advance, start filling up. You go, right, I need this type of person. You might say, well, I'm going to keep doing sales and I'm going to keep doing estimating. Right. In and around that, who do I need? Right. And that's how you're going to start building your team. Okay. Now, if you ignore this, what you're going to find is if you don't start thinking about things like that, you're going to push into that 1.5, 2 million, and you're going to be going, boy, I'm doing a lot more revenue, but I'm making less money. Why is that? It's because you didn't build it in your mind first. You didn't work on the technique first. You just went think, if I just do more revenue, it'll make me, it'll work for me. And it doesn't. It goes against you. Right. The last thing we hear is the intrinsic value. And I think that I've got there of metrics. Yeah. Intrinsic value of metrics. So what is the built-in value of metrics? Metrics don't just measure performance, they will build confidence, clarity, and leadership maturity. Because the speed of the leader determines the speed of the pack. I'm so doubling down on leadership right now. Your personal leadership, your professional leadership, and your private leadership. The ability to lead yourself. Because pretenders only make it so far. I've seen guys that just try and baffle the whole thing with bullshit. It doesn't work. It works short term. It might work for a microsecond, but it does not. You can't use that as a foundation stone to build your business, right? So guys and gals, that's where it is. We've got to understand the built-in nature of, the built-in value of metrics. We've got to understand that we will find our path to success, whatever that is for you. But it's going to be built off the back of understanding the metrics and the math. Get across to Business for Builders VIP, private group on Facebook, or Business for Builders Facebook. Make sure that you get a hold of me if you want to chat. I would urge you to go and check out the Contractor Academy on the Elite Business Advisory website. Take a look at that and have a think about your level of discipline. Because I can't take somebody whose life business-wise is a mess and convert that in 3 months. It just doesn't happen that way because your leadership needs to come with it. I can lead you somewhere, but if you can't keep up or you haven't got the discipline or the patience, it's not going to work out. So what I would say to you is go and invest in the EBA Contract Academy, right? There's 24 videos and there's resources on there, $65 American. What this is going to tell you about you is all of that stuff in there is what I subscribe to, okay? Can you discipline yourself to sit down and watch a 20, 30-minute video and look at some of the resources that are in there? Start thinking about your business. It is the cheapest academy that you can go to see whether or not you've got the chops. And if you can't do that and you can't make time in your schedule to do that, then you're probably not going to build a business beyond $500,000, $750,000. That is high performance. That is highly profitable. You'll just hit the ceiling. You just will, because you're not going to be putting systems in place. You're not going to be able to lead people. You're not going to have recruitment systems in place. You're not going to have SOPs. Like, it's just, there's so much missing from within your business. That's why the revenue thing doesn't. If it spikes, great, but it won't sustain itself because it's been like one of these rock and roll one-hit wonders. Okay, so I would urge you, I beg you, invest in yourself. Okay, and go and put that together and discipline yourself. Matter of fact, I had one client recently where I said, you got to go and do that for 3 months and then we'll talk about full-time coaching. How about that? Cheap investment, good idea as to whether or not they're going to have the discipline to be able to put it together, whether they got the time management capabilities, whether they got the bandwidth to be able to sit down and learn something, whether they got the patience. Speaks for itself. Okay, all of my stuff's in the bio. Go and check that out. Go build a kick-ass business. See you on the next episode. Cheers.